Heidi Voigt is back in studio with us. Good morning, young lady.
Good morning.
Okay, this one's a tough one for me. How to win as a buyer or a seller? How can you help me with this?
Well, the conversations that I've been having with both buyers and sellers lately is that, when it comes down to that point where you've got, say, an offer and you're negotiating, and I tell buyers, if you want to win as a buyer, you have to think like the seller, and if you want to win as a seller, you have to think like the buyer. It's pretty easy.
Okay.
You put yourself in their shoes, and what would you do if you were a seller? What are you looking for? And, and that all comes down to risk management usually.
So when you're talking about this stuff, to me, it's like, if I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to put on a new coat of paint. It doesn't cost me a lot of money,
Nope.
but somebody's going to walk into that house and go, oh my gosh, I love this, or new carpet or something like that. Am I on the right track?
You are, and that would be a seller thing. So that's how you win as a seller, and what you're talking about is creating the element of move-in readiness.
Yeah.
So people can come in and, sometimes it might not be their color or whatever, but eliminating as many objections as somebody would have that puts them in a position where they don't feel like they're going to have to invest a lot of money into it. That's how a seller wins a buyer. That's a pretty easy one. And that's an upfront thing. That's not a negotiation thing. That's kind of an upfront thing that they would do. Other things that we see sellers doing would be, let's say their furnace and AC is 20 years old.
Putting new stuff in.
Yeah, new stuff, or just say, you know what, I'm going to offer a 1-year warranty on that.
Okay.
And then if anything goes wrong the first year somebody's there, they've got some coverage.
Where does that occur? Like, is that written in on a disclosure thing or what?
It can actually be part of the purchase agreement,
Okay.
but as a seller, if you're advertising your home, you can put in remarks that, hey, as part of this, make sure you put to ask us for this warranty because we're willing to pay for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I would think that'd be a huge selling and buying point.
Well, for sure, and it's something that we didn't see in the marketplace where there were, a lot of multiple offers. It's one of those
Right.
things where you just extracted as much as you could out of the situation to make it most beneficial for the seller. But as you traject yourself into a more neutral marketplace or a little bit more balanced marketplace, some of those things come to the forefront again.
To me, if I'm a buyer or a seller, I think that the purchaser, the one who's going to be forking out the money, is the one who's in the driver's seat. Yes? No?
No, I wouldn't say that that's always the case.
Okay.
I would say it depends on what price point you're in,
Okay.
and if it's a buyer's market, they're in the driver's seat, and
Sure.
in determining what they put into the purchase agreement. So you're right in there, but the driver's seat is going to be the person that has the most leverage.
Okay.
And we came out of a time frame where sellers had the most leverage. Now it's a little more balanced.
Yeah. So in other words, supply and demand.
Correct.
The tighter the
Absolutely.
supply,
Yep.
the better off it is for the seller.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So sellers also in this marketplace may be in a position where they'll entertain an offer that's subject to the sale of another home.
Okay.
And that is something we have seen in the last couple of months, more so than we've seen in the last probably 6 years.
Well, I remember it was just a few weeks ago that you said that you had just a surprising number of offers on a home. You
Yes.
didn't really kind of expect that.
For sure.
So is that starting to be more of the norm, that we are in fact turning that page? We're getting back to normalcy. Folks are, okay, we're at 6.5%, we're at 7% right now. This is the way it is.
Yeah, I think that and that also comes down to what product we're looking at. That what we talked about that week was there was a property that was on land,
Okay.
and those don't come up as much.
Right.
But when you're looking at maybe something that's at $500,000 in South St. Cloud or Sartell, there's a little bit more of a plethora of inventory there at this
Okay.
point. So those are the people that, that's going to be a move-up purchase for most people. So the sale of another home might be part of that equation. And if a seller is willing to do that, then it might put them in a position where they maybe get a little better price than
Sure.
they would if they don't.
I love how you've written this. If you want to win as a buyer, think like a seller.
Exactly.
If you want to win as a seller, think like a buyer.
Exactly.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, for sure. And as buyers, you have to, there's some things you can do. Of course, we've always talked about doing fewer contingencies. One of the things that has really helped buyers win, I think, in this marketplace is that when you are going over list price, so if
Okay.
you're in one of those price points where there's a lot of competition and you're competing, and you're actually making an offer over list price, Having a buyer come in and say, well, I'm gonna offer you $8,000 more than the list price, but I only expect the property to appraise for what you had it listed at. So if it doesn't appraise for your list price, I will cover that with my own cash.
Sure.
We call that appraisal gap coverage. That's
Okay.
what it was kind of coined. But that is a way that sellers can feel confident that going into the next 3-4 weeks, they're not gonna have to renegotiate something later on.
And also, if I'm gonna offer a bunch of money and, let's see, if I'm the seller, I'm going to need non-refundable money down, right? To show me that you are serious. True?
Well, that, I think every seller wants that.
Yeah.
I will say that the Minnesota contract that we have is, really devised to be much more protective of the buyer than it is the seller when it
Okay.
comes to earnest money.
All right.
So that, I think, is also a point of contention that comes up depending on price point. So
Okay.
if you're dealing with entry-level buyers and there are third-party factors like appraisals and lenders and job situations that could put them in a position where all of a sudden they can't get their financing, I would say 95% of the time, that earnest money situation is a refundable type of event.
Gotcha.
When you start getting into higher end properties where people have some cash and they have the ability to have a lot more confidence in their financing situation,
Okay.
that's when that comes into play a little bit more.
All right, Heidi, this is very important because we've talked about a lot of things, and it always stresses the importance of dealing with you folks at VoigtJohnson Real Estate. What's the best way?
Well, the best way is to give us a call at 320-774-2400 or reach out to, or check out our webpage at VoigtJohnson.com. Great faces waiting for you to give us a call so we can help you with your real estate needs.
Nice, thank you, Heidi.
All right, thanks.